Terminator 2. Let's talk about it. I know there's a Terminator 1, but let's be real. Terminator 2 is where the action really begins. Terminator 1 was like a 90s horror movie, right? Terminator 2 is when this thing became like a science fiction god among the science fiction movies, right? Terminator 2 is obviously back in the 90s, but this movie was so good. Aside from the production value and whatever, the story was so cool. We're seeing this mom with this graphic awareness of what's coming for humanity, right? She's raising the guy who's going to save the world or whatever. And then this robot comes from the future to kill everybody. Only this time he's actually come to protect her son, which was obviously a drama to have to figure out. But watching this whole thing play out was such an adventure for us because we remember from the first movie, this guy came as this villain to try and kill everyone, to kill the guy that's going to change everything. And there's such a theme of fate and messing with the timeline and what's really going to take place and who's important here and what do we have to do and how do I sacrifice in order to, you know, preserve the future and all this stuff. But in the second one, we see this new villain enter who can turn into anybody else and who can become liquid metal and is a weapon, right? Super cool. First of all, being able to melt as metal and become something else is so cool. So, I mean, we just have to talk about that. That was such a cool bad guy up to that point in movie theater history. Watching Sarah Connor have to choose between her own humanity and her son, it's such a sad struggle to watch her make some really intense agreements with shutting her own soul down, with not being able to allow hope or love or like joy into her life because she has to be serious and control this to guarantee results. Sarah Connor is a very well-informed religious Christian in the context of the story. You see that she knows what she's talking about. She's actually accurate in her information, but her execution on what does it look like to succeed in carrying out her mission, totally different from what a human being would actually function as. She's taken on the weight of the world on her shoulders and now has become super robotic herself. And you actually start to wonder, who's the robot here, right? She's such a machine about it and so harsh and intense and aggressive, kind of reminiscent of the whole Sandra Bullock Bird Box approach. I have to be a drone. I can't have emotions. I can't attach. I can't let joy in my life lest I slip and then lose the future and whatever. And it seems so dramatic and intense, but it's actually a really good depiction of how some of us treat our lives and our hearts and the things that we're involved with. We want to get so intense and so aggressive and so controlling about the things that we're managing so we can guarantee certain results, or I think ultimately avoid certain punishments. I think a lot of us are trying to avoid being punished or rejected or experiencing consequences that feel devastating to us, so we adjust our vitality in the moment to prevent a future outcome that we don't want, right? This is where fear comes in and starts to run our lives. Destroy our lives. A fruit of the Holy Spirit is self-control. It's absolutely true. The moment we try to control anything else, you're not talking to God anymore. When we try to exert our control over a circumstance or a person or a situation, we start tapping into some nasty stuff because the Lord doesn't need you to control any of it in order for him to show himself strong and to take care of you. And so anytime we start trying to take stuff into our own hands and make something happen out of our own will and effort, we've actually taken counsel from something other than God to produce those results. And Sarah Connor is a strong, pronounced manifestation of someone very far gone on the bad end of that spectrum. She is so entrenched with it's up to me and I need to do everything I can to make sure this happens, and is tapping into this hopeless despair thing to make sure that her son is going to survive. And you watch her life and her commentary and her attitude, that woman is miserable. And her son is like trying to be a kid and grow up and have a soul, while his mom is like this zombie robot woman who's just so militant and aggressive about everything. It's so sad to watch and also just really telling. It's like, dang, look at what she has said yes to try and get results in her life. You guys, Sarah Connor is a warning to all of us. Look at what you could be if you become so distracted with the responsibility and the assignment on your life and forget who's actually going to accomplish it. When you think this is you, you are Sarah Connor. You become the controlling, aggressive, dominating, violent, fearful, paranoid, mean girl. When you're actually supposed to be the most lighthearted, the most hope-filled, the most engaged, the most peaceful, and carrying the most weight. That is your responsibility. You have something beautiful to bring to the world, but your intensity and your aggression is not going to be what pulls it off. It's going to come from your beautiful childlike trust and dependence on who God is in your life, and He's going to be the one to give you success in that place. So that's something really important to pay attention to. It's so pronounced. Her whole journey throughout the whole thing is just, it's painful and exhausting to watch, and it won't relent. There's like hardly any redeeming moments with her throughout the whole story. It's brutal. But then you watch her son, John, have to be a human in the midst of like watching her be the way that she is. He has these moments of like anger and resentment and lashing out, but he also has these moments of compassion and trying to like relate to her and help her know it's going to be okay. And he doesn't have the answers. He's just a child, right? But he actually speaks more wisdom throughout the dialogue than she ever does in the whole movie. He speaks on Hope's behalf. He still believes things can get better. He still thinks that things could be good. And so in his naivety? How do you say that word? Naivety. In his naivety, John postures himself as a trustful, dependent boy, navigating the world in front of him, doing the best that he can, which can seem like irresponsibility to the controlling, aggressive person, but actually it is the path of success in any area of our life. You guys, so when we start partnering with aggression and domination to try and get results, it doesn't matter whether you've accomplished the results or not, you've already failed. You've stripped life from that equation, and life is really the goal, no matter what the outcome is. And we've got some responses to even what I've said so far. They're gonna be like, well, what about? And I'm like, your what-abouts don't actually matter. At the end of the day, we're talking about the spirit of a thing. So how you go about doing what you're doing. I'm not saying we give up trying to be successful or give up accomplishing the thing. Yes, that's still on the table. But how we get there also matters. We can't Sarah Connor this. We have to John Connor it. And then we also get to watch both Sarah and John work out their trust and relationship with the Terminator. Can they trust him? Is he there to help? Can they be vulnerable with this character in their group? Can they rely on him to show up, right? And you watch Sarah make those negotiations as they go, and John starts to bond to him with this father figure type dynamic, right? Which is super important. And you watch this robot, this machine bring a very humanizing element to their relationship, because without the Terminator, John was left with a zombie of a woman who is worse than a robot. It's one thing to be like neither here nor there about something. It's another thing entirely to be totally sold on control and aggression and harshness, right? Versus being objective. The robot actually brought a humanizing element to their relationship and brought redemption to their ability to be humans moving forward in trying to save the planet. So interesting. This is more like, the back end, like what's going on relationally here. The movie itself is awesome, but I also love watching the dynamics and the agreements that are being displayed and how people choose to move forward and what they think is going to be helpful for success in their lives. Obviously, the movie's rated R. There's a lot of graphic language and bloody, stabby things that happen in the movie, but I love this movie. It's up there in my top favorite movies. So cool. It stands on its own. It's just such an iconic piece of, movie history. I love this movie. And remember, guys, when you're watching a movie, you're never alone. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell button. Let us know, what are your thoughts on Terminator 2? Have you noticed anything in your life where you've chosen aggression or control or domination instead of being a person about this and trusting in love and the truth to guide you to get the results you're looking for? We want to hear about that. Put that in the comments below. If anything in this video resonated with you and you're like, oh yeah, that's happening and I don't want that, and how do I figure that out, or what do I do? I've got a team of spirit coaches I personally trained and I work with who are working with people regularly, and we've got space in our calendar. If that's something you'd like to apply to work with, you can sign up to work with one of our coaches with the link below.